Crowd.
Yeah, very educated crowd here in Wisconsin. They know what's happening.
Well, you're around the sport so much that's you have no choice but to be well educated in the sport at this point.
So I will defer my seat and just work the cameras, and we'll bring our guests in. We'll let Jesse introduce you here in just a second as we get ready for a semifinal match. Thanks for joining us. Craig Elliott here live on Bowl Stream TV, the 2016 Wisconsin State High School Bowling Championships.
On the final ball here, we see Jalen Haanen end with a 173. So it's a 20-pin victory for J.C. Morgan. Congratulations, Jalen Haanen of Waukesha West, finishing in 4th place in our state girls singles tournament. So just to fill you in so far as to how the bracket looks, Emily Nurmi of Union Grove finishing in 5th, Jalen Haanen in 4th, and J.C. Morgan of Oshkosh West will face Carleen Byer of Manawa in our girls semifinal. Meanwhile, on the boys' side, Justin Mickelson, the 5 seed, finishes in 5th from Sheboygan North Lutheran. Andrew Olson from Sun Prairie finishes in 4th. Chad Dembski of Marshall moving on to face Ethan Flegel of Waukesha West in our semifinal. Jeremy Hodgson of Sun Prairie waiting in the wings as the number 1 seed for the boys. Morgan Starry of Green Bay Southwest waits in the wings as the number 1 seed on the girls' side. So as the bowlers prepare now for practice, we bring in our special guest, Kelly Kulik from Storm. And Kelly, thanks for being a part of the broadcast with us here this morning.
Oh, thank you for having me. Good morning, everybody out there. Very exciting event going on. I'm happy to be a part of it.
So what do you see? That's what I want to ask you first. When you come into the center and you see all these young bowlers taking over the town for the weekend, and it's just an exciting atmosphere. It's wall-to-wall people when you've got the team events going on Friday, Saturday, and here for the singles event, it's even shoulder-to-shoulder in the bleachers behind us. Just such an extraordinary event. So exciting to see young bowlers getting out on the lanes.
Absolutely. The last time I saw this was in the collegiate ranks. If you go to any college event, you'll see wall-to-wall parents, supportive spectators, and it's at the high school level too. I mean, with junior gold being so successful, it's so exciting to see so many youthful participants bowling these days.
And in the state of Wisconsin especially, people don't realize how many high school bowlers there are across the state. And you tell people you're going to help out at a high school bowling event, they're like, what, you got 4 people there that are eating pizza, drinking soda, and throwing a ball a couple of times? But that's not at all what the environment is like for the Baker format.
I know. Can you imagine? We're here at Weston Lanes, and it's a 60 or 64 lane center, filled wall to wall with a hotel attached, and wow, what can you say? It's just so, the energy in the building is overwhelming.
And I think part of what you say there as well, each center has its own personality. The environment really contributes to the state tournament. Last year we're in the Madison-Sun Prairie combo where the girls and boys were separated on the team event days and then came together for the championship Sunday. Here you've got essentially 3 separate sections of the center divided. You've got an L shape for the layout of the center, and it really creates its own environment.
It does, and surprisingly, the traffic flows very, very well. Mm-hmm. If the fire department was here, I'm not sure we'd be up to code because there's so many people in the building, so you didn't hear that publicly from me.
We did, when I competed here back in 2010, I believe one of the parents just yelled really loudly right before we started, I hope there's no fire. There's no way anyone's going to be able to pack out of here in
And it's been upgraded. The parents are bringing step stools. They've got the periscopes. They got binoculars.
You're around long enough. You figure it out.
Yeah.
So we start our semifinal matches. Ethan Flegel with the first ball on the boys' side on lane 13 with a 9 count. Ethan Flegel out of Waukesha West. And then meanwhile on lane 10, J.C. Morgan back. The number 3 seed throws a 9 count as well on her first ball on lane 10.
Yeah, I was able to witness the last match, and it seems like the boys are able to play very straight up the lane, not giving up the pocket too much, and spares in this environment are so crucial.
Take me through the mentality of when you've got a tricky oil pattern out there, you've got 1 game to advance. What is your mentality in the first couple of frames as you start the match?
It's so crucial to get it lined up so fast. You really want to be able to throw the ball, not have to hesitate on what your reaction looks like, and be comfortable with your physical game and then what your ball reaction is telling you to do. From there, it's just really trying to shape the ball in the pocket and keep the frames clean.
Both Ethan and JC convert their spares, and now we see Chad Dembski returning, the number 3 seed for the boys from Marshall. Meanwhile, we see Carleen Byer from Manawa over on lane 9 throwing her first ball of the day. Dembski with a Brooklyn strike, and Carleen Byer with a strike as well on 9.
Yeah, Dembski dominated that last match, shooting 268, I believe, and he was able to play right around 5-6 up the lanes. That one got a little inside of him, using the Brooklyn strike to carry.
So pair of strikes there, and now both bowlers return, lanes 10 and 13 respectively. When you're in a 5-person stepladder tournament, do you just automatically know you want to be the number 1 seed? You want to bowl in that last match for the championship, or do you want to position yourself where you get that one match leading into the championship?
Great strike by Carleen. There's multiple ways of looking at it. Sometimes if you're the 2nd or 3rd seed, you have the advantage of reading the lane conditions, so you know what's going to happen over the course of a match. If you're going in number 1, you only have that one game, and you only get 8 shots to practice and find that zone you want to be in. So it can go both those ways. It can be an advantage or a disadvantage.
Carleen Byer and Chad Dembski both with doubles to start. Again, we're joined by Kelly Kulik. Joining us, compliments of Storm here this morning for our Wisconsin High School Bowling Club State Championship Sunday. This is the singles event, the team event to come later. JC Morgan over on lane 9 with an 8 count in the 2nd frame. Meanwhile, the two-handed bowler over on lane 14, Ethan Flegel with his first strike.
I'm amazed by the amount of two-handed bowlers there are these days. With Jason Belmonte, Oscar Palermo, and so many other successful professional bowlers, they've revolutionized the game to where we see so many youngsters now bowling two-handed.
And what do you make of that? I mean, do you have any opinions one way or another on the two-handed game?
I'm a firm believer that the pins don't recognize if you're a boy or a girl, one-handed, two-handed, short, tall, either way. It's whoever knocks down the pins and is most successful doing it. I think it's great what they can do. They start at a very young age to gain more power and more revolutions on the ball. And mechanically, it makes sense. It balances out both sides of the body.
I'm a firm believer those pins were always out to get me. Here on lane 13, Ethan Flegel with a 9 count. Got a lot of pin action with that two-handed release and comes up with a 9 count here. So that's back-to-back 9 counts on lane 13 for Ethan. Meanwhile, JC Morgan on lane 10 with a 7 count. She's converted spares in frames 1 and 2. Gets a chance to go across the lane and convert another one here in frame number 3.
Your body can generate so much power two-handed. It's all in the last 3 steps, that step, hop, slide, and really ball speed and revolutions is what knocks down the pins these days.
Both bowlers convert their spares here in frame number 3, and Chad Dembski working on a double will take lane 14 here as we see Carleen Byer prepared to step up on lane 3, also working with a double.
They're so focused on what they want to do that neither one recognizes who's on the approach at what time.
They actually throw simultaneously here. Being multiple lanes apart, it's not so much of a problem. Carleen Byer with a 9 count. Meanwhile, Chad Dembski with a little trouble here. A 6 count on his first ball, leaves a bunch on the right side.
3, 6, 9, 10. This is a bowler's nightmare. We hate shooting this spare.
In the team event, you're able to bring in a left-handed substitution here if you have one on the bench, and that was the game we played at State as Carleen Byer with an open frame here. In the 3rd frame, she misses her 10-pin there, so now here is that 3, 6, 9, 10, and Chad Dembski leaves one of them.
Again, one of the most difficult spares to shoot. There's that sleeper wood behind with the 9-pin, and you can make it and miss in so many ways.
So a pair of opens for both the bowlers that had doubles through the first 2 frames. And now Carleen Beyer ended up on the wrong side of the head pin there with a Brooklyn ball and leaves a split, the 3-10 on the right side. A makeable spare, though.
Absolutely. Both girls are attacking the lane two different ways. JC is very much straighter up the boards, where Carleen has more rotation, more hand, and she's able to be around that 12-13 zone, trying to create more area and use the friction to the right for more recovery.
Carleen converts her spare on lane 10, so a good response there out of the open frame in the third to come back with the split spare. And now JC Morgan will take the approach on lane 9. Meanwhile, a difficult opportunity here for Chad Dembski. Opened in frame number 3 here. Important to at least get one. He does so. But a pair of opens in frames 3 and 4 for Chad.
Yeah, usually the characteristics are when you come in high, the next one's going to be very far outside, and chances are it's going to be a 2-pin conversion.
This one looks good on lane 9, and you bet JC Morgan gets them all down. Her first strike of this semifinal match. Part of the fun of the high school bowling atmosphere are the teammates and fans that come to support you. We hear the Oshkosh West contingency right behind us cheering on JC with every successful ball she throws.
Yeah, we've got cheerleaders. They just don't have pom-poms or the short skirts behind us. So it's really the family support is outstanding.
JC's ball on 10. Looked
Just
good.
a bit high.
Came up a little high and leaves a single pin to knock down here in the 5th frame. JC Morgan of Oshkosh West.
Yeah, it's interesting to watch the players' pace. The younger kids are quick. They want to get the frame over with. If they could just take a little more time, more concentration, I think we'd see some better execution.
Difficult spare converted for Ethan Flegel. And, tough miss for JC Morgan. Broke on her at the last second, and she pushed it just to the left, trying to knock down that 4-pin there. So an open for JC in the 5th, and 83 her total through 5.
Most of the time you'll see the athletes converting to a plastic ball or a urethane ball to go much straighter at the spares. You take the lane out of play.
Carleen Beyer on lane 9. I think she tried to change up her line a little bit there, if I'm not mistaken, and comes up a little high. An 8 count with a makeable spare on the right side, the 6-10.
Yeah, she's definitely deeper than JC.
Ethan Flegel hammers down a strike and a pump of the fist as he's excited about that one. Carleen Beyer, unfortunately, unable to come up with that spare, only gets one of the pins. So through 5 frames, we have the exact pin count, and it's a 1-pin difference. Carleen Beyer in 84, JC Morgan in 83.
Let's see how she bounces back from that last frame.
Again, joined by Kelly Kulick, compliments of Storm here on the broadcast. I'm Jesse Nelson of ESPN Wisconsin. Craig Elliott also here as well, Bullstream TV. Chad Dembski on lane 14, back to basics there with a strike.
He needed that. He needed that to put himself back in the match.
Now another 6-10 opportunity, and this time Carleen Beyer able to convert. A spare in the 6th for Carleen.
I have to compliment the young athletes. The sportsmanship here is just, I can't even find the word. It's so wonderful to see how receptive they are, how supportive they are of each other's game, and great sportsmen.
That's something that, from the game of bowling throughout the season, as you're competing in singles tournaments, team tournaments, all year long, you have to develop that chemistry and some familiar faces over the years and over the months that you're competing.
Yeah. Well, you can still be friends and competitors at the same time.
We saw in the last boys match, we saw Andrew Olson from Sun Prairie and Chad Dembski of Marshall. They share a center that they both practice in. So very familiar with one another, competing here at the highest level for high school bowlers in the state of Wisconsin. Crowd goes silent as JC Morgan with a difficult spare on 9. She picks up 2 pins, which we've talked earlier in the broadcast that every pin matters. It's kind of a simple point to make, but you need every pin possible. You can't take the chances you would take in a league format or in a team format where it's like, oh, I might as well throw this one as fast as I can and see what happens and try to get the spare. You can't do that here.
Yeah, especially on the sport condition. You have to, on a strike, 2 is 4. My college coach taught me that a long time ago, and at the end of the match, those 2 extra pins that's converted to 4 really add up.
J.C. Morgan, the fan saying that's a good ball, and she leaves the 10 pin on lane 10.
If you watch both girls' reactions, as it's shaping up at the end, it's very sharp. So that tells me the ball is not losing enough energy and shaping up more like an S shape. So it can leave those tricky leaves, single pin, splits, washouts.
As you saw on our screen here on lane 14, Ethan Flegel with the two-handed release had a tough time getting that ball to come across the pattern, across the lane, and opens with leaving a 7 pin on the left side here in the 6th frame. It's a 106 for Ethan Flegel. Meanwhile, Chad Dembski working on a double through the 5th and 6th. J.C. Morgan converts the spare in the 7th.
I have a great philosophy in bowling. Anybody can knock down 10, but not everyone can pick up 1.
How true it is. Ethan Flegel on lane 13. That'll get him back in the game. And on lane 9, Carleen Byer of Manawa with a 9 count leaves a 10 pin. Huge spare at a pivotal point in this one. This is still anyone's match in the girls' game.
Yeah, it looks like she moved in a little bit deeper, got a little bit more rotation on the side with her hand, and unfortunately just left the 10 pin.
Keeps it on the lane and drills that 10 pin. I think that's the highest pressure shot to make in a format like this throughout my years of high school bowling and as you're in other tournaments that are across the state, across the country. Just when you have that single 10 pin there, it's so difficult to make as Chad Dembski crushes all the pins down on lane 14 for another strike. That's now 3 in a row.
Yeah, all these pressure situations, making that 1 single pin.
And it helps to have a good following, good support behind you as you're attempting to knock those down, as Carleen Byer with a strike in the 8th. Huge shot for Carleen.
JC needed strikes to catch up here.
Chad Dembski working on 3 in a row, make it 4. Strikes in the 5th, 6th, 7th, and now 8th frame. Chad Dembski finding that touch that he had in the previous game, which he threw a 268, and J.C. Morgan on lane 9 in the 8th frame with a strike of her own.
Yeah, Chad made the proper move. He started to creep inside or move inward or left for the right-handed bowlers, and he was able to use the friction he built up to the right to create more area for him down the lane.
Let's see how Ethan Flegel responds on 14. He gets a strike. It's a double for Ethan. Hanging on in the boys' semifinal.
So
J.C. Morgan.
Down by about 16 pins.
An 8 count for J.C. on lane 10 in the 9th frame. She'll need the spare.
(2-5), not one of my favorite spares either.
Especially on this pattern today, we could see some trouble.
She's hooking at it. Converts
Solid.
it with ease.
Easy does it on that spare in the 9th for J.C. Morgan. Oshkosh West. J.C. trying to find her way into the girls' finals. Meanwhile, Ethan Flegel looked like a good ball over there working on a double.
Oh, it was a great shot. You saw the 6 pin just go horizontal and wrap itself around the 10. That's
Brutal.
a ringing 10.
Carleen Byer with a strike in the 9. She's got a double heading into the 10th frame. Tight match on 9 and 10. Ethan Flegel converts the 10 pin. Interesting how a two-handed bowler goes about converting that 10 pin spare.
Yeah, it's all about how the ball is coming off the hand at the bottom of the swing. You're really able to manipulate it by going around it more or just up the back of it.
Carleen Byer's first ball of the 10th frame is a 9 count. Looked like a pretty good line there.
Yep, just a pinch inside of her line earlier from that lane. And the ball picked up a little soon, 4-pin. 1-pin single conversion. Let's see if she runs it down.
Best case scenario, 192 for Carleen Byer.
Chad's locked.
And Carleen able to pick up the spare in the 10th. A strike would give her a 192. Chad Dembski, as you mentioned, Kelly, with 5 in a row heading into the 10th frame.
Yeah, Carleen locked the match. Chad has 2.
All Carleen had to do was keep it on the lane to secure victory there in the 10th frame, and she does so. So Carleen Byer of Manawa will compete for the girls' state singles championship. Meanwhile, Chad Dembski can't keep the run going into the 10th frame, leaves a 7-pin, but he's all but secured his berth in the championship match as well. J.C. Morgan will finish out her time in the 10th frame here. A good showing from J.C. A lot of adjustments she had to make throughout her 2 matches here this morning, and a good run to 3rd place in the state singles competition on the girls' side.
Absolutely. She's a young girl. I think she's still developing her skills and fundamentals. Love to see her work on her swing a little bit more, but what a success story getting this far in this competition.
I believe if I'm seeing correctly, that's a 3-pin out there that JC converts as a spare, so she'll get one last ball here at the 2016 Wisconsin High School Bowling Championships. Weston Lanes, the site here in Schofield, Wisconsin, just outside of Wausau. 9 count on the final ball for Chad Dembski, a 221 his total. Nice showing from Chad Dembski of Marshall. And guess what? He's going to go toe-to-toe with Jeremy Hodston, who he is another familiar face to Chad Dembski,
Really?
a Sun Prairie bowler. So 2 guys from the same center will compete for the boys' championship. Chad Dembski of Marshall, Jeremy Hodston of Sun Prairie. Meanwhile, a 171, a strike on the final ball for J.C. Morgan. A nice finish there, and a 20-pin victory for Carleen Byer, 191 to 171 the final. So it'll be the 1 versus the 2 as Morgan Starry from Green Bay Southwest awaits Carleen Byer of Manawa for the girls' singles championship. Ethan Flegel finishing out his day for Waukesha West. Converts a spare. He'll get one last ball for his tournament run as well.
Anytime you're bowling on a sport pattern, 190 game is the equivalent of a 210, 220 game on your average league shot. So he stayed clean. He missed 1 spare. Had he made that spare, probably would have kept him in the match a little bit closer. But anytime, again, sport condition, it comes down to who makes some more spares.
Strike here would give Ethan a 194 game, and he gets them all. Able to get a strike on that final ball. Both bowlers that come up short here in the semifinals. So Ethan Flegel, a 3rd place finish at the state singles competition. And now we'll get set for the championship rounds. What's your mentality as a bowler when you're 1 game away from winning a championship?
I focus in what got me there. Usually by the championship match, the lanes have developed into my favor. Again, more friction to the right, so I'm able to play inside of the other ladies that I'm bowling against. I've done it so many times. I've had a lot of firsts, I've had a lot of seconds, and it's just being in that moment. Really, for me, I'm working with a mental coach to focus on my process. And that, for me, is a short first step, the tempo of my feet, and allowing my shoulders to fall at the top of the swing.
You mentioned all the things that we're analyzing there, your feet, your release, the lanes, the reaction of the ball when it hits the pins. How do you soak all that in on a given shot, and especially in a pressure situation that you're trying to deal with at a championship level like this? How does your mind racing that fast on a given shot?
I'm very process-oriented. I really focus on getting from the back of the approach to the foul line. If you can read piece shots and then watch your ball reaction, that's secondary. But being able to physically execute from the back of the approach to the foul line is the key, the operator. From there, it's just matching up. So if I physically feel sound, I feel the rest will take care of itself.
Getting set for our championship match here on Bullstream TV. Thanks for joining us this morning. I'm Jesse Nelson of ESPN Wisconsin, joined by Kelly Kulik, who joins us compliments of Storm, and again, Craig Elliott here as well. He's taking a back seat running our cameras right now, but Craig will be joining us again here in a little bit as we're getting ready for our state singles championships. It's down to 2 bowlers for the boys, 2 bowlers for the girls. Jeremy Hodgson of Sun Prairie is the number 1 seed. He gets his practice time now on lanes 13 and 14, as you see on our screen. And just wrapping up, we saw Morgan Starry of Green Bay Southwest over on lanes 9 and 10. Throughout the afternoon here as we get into the team competition as well, the girls will continue to bowl to our left. We're stationed in a broadcast booth right behind lanes 11 and 12, so creating some separation between the 2 lanes here. The girls will continue to compete on our left-hand side while the boys will continue to compete on the right. So there is that consistency as we're getting set for all of our competitions here today. So it's been a long run. The number 2 seed, Carleen Byer, the number 1 seed, Morgan Starry for the girls, the number 1 seed, Jeremy Hodgson for the boys, taking on the number 3 seed, Chad Dembski of Marshall. Going to be a fun championship bowl here as we officially get the screens queued up, and we are set. 1 game. The stepladder finals.
Now, is Jeremy the only left-hander in the field for the top 5 this morning?
I believe he was this morning, yes.
All right, just looking at his scores, he started off the first round with a 267 and then the second round with a 209. So he does like the fresher side. Just had 2 weak games in the middle there, one in the middle, one at the end. If he gets lined up, this is going to be a fair match because Chad has just dominated lanes 13 and 14 all morning.
And take us through the mentality of a left-handed bowler, how that's different than a righty when it comes down to these one-on-one matchups.
You know, the left side doesn't break down nearly as fast. The moves are much smaller. They're able to stay on top and play straighter angles, which usually leads to better pin carry. He's just going to focus on this game. That's all he's going to do. He's going to not even worry about Chad because it's out of his control.
Carleen Byer, the first shot of our championship match, leaves a ringing 10-pin. That's 6. Rings right around it like you mentioned in the last match.
Yeah, her ball just needs to tip up in the pocket about a foot sooner.
And how do you make that adjustment?
Usually it's a subtle adjustment. You can move your eyes a little bit closer, bring your target close to your earlier roll in the beginning part of the lane. You can try to do it with hand, but it's easier just to do your target length or distance.
Carleen converts the spare over on lane 10. Meanwhile, on lane 13, you saw it on your screen. Chad Dembski started to look like that 5-pin wobbling back and forth and finally got a little pin action to come over and knock it down. So a lead-off strike for Chad Dembski in the boys' championship match. Now Jeremy Hodgson approaches on 14. First ball of the day for Jeremy, and a little light on the left side there. Gets a 9 count, though. Very makeable spare. Meanwhile, Morgan Starry's first ball right in the pocket. A solid strike for Morgan.
Yeah, she's a little bit further right than Carleen, so she's got a little bit more friction. She looks solid at the line. And Jeremy very deep on the left side.
Has to go across the lane to convert this spare. He does so with ease, so a mark in the first for Jeremy Hodgson. Every bowler in our championship match with a mark in frame number 1. Morgan's release down the lane, tried to get the carry there, but unfortunately it just grazes the 10 pin, unable to knock it over.
Great pin action. The ball just came in a pinch late, but the head pin was able to bounce off the left side and come back. Just not enough energy to click it out.
Do you make an adjustment in that situation, or just throw it again and hope you get it to come across a centimeter closer?
You know, she's in the right zone. It just came up a pinch late. I probably wouldn't move my feet. It might have been a physical error, or it might have to be a one-on-one move to the right.
Jeremy Hodgson with a strike in frame number 2. Looks like it didn't take long for him to find his line. Morgan releases here for the 10 pin and comes up to the left side, unable to convert the spare. So an open frame in frame number 2 for Morgan Starry out of Green Bay Southwest, the number 1 seed in the girls singles championship. Chad Dembski again delivers on lane 14, a strike. 2 in a row to start for Chad Dembski.
His adrenaline's going. That ball was about an extra half a mile an hour faster than the previous one.
And a tricky one here for Carlene Beyer, trying to capitalize on the open frame from Morgan Starry, and it's a 5 count.
Yeah, this angle was difficult to see, but I don't think it came off her hand the same way as it did on the other lane. She might have just not got through it as well, missed at the bottom of the swing, and the ball just never picked up in the mid lane.
Carlene's attempt at converting the spare. She's going to get 3.
Wise move, could just be nerves.
So a pair of open frames in frame number 2 on the girls' side. Meanwhile, in frame number 3, Chad Dembski's, why not, start with 3 in a row to begin. And you mentioned, Kelly, he is dialed in.
Yeah, he's dominated lanes 13 and 14. He's been able to stay on top of it. Ball speed is what he focuses on, and it's able to allow him to play right a lot longer than the other players.
Had a couple open frames in the middle of the semifinal match, but since then has rebounded strongly. And meanwhile on lane 10, a strike for Carlene Beyer, responding well after that open frame in the second.
Yeah, for the viewers out there, just to give you some understanding, as the ball is going down the lane, try tracking the colors of the bowling ball as it's revolving. You could see with Chad, he's got those bright orange fluorescent grips, and they start to get taller and taller, which means the ball is in the correct phase. For Carlene here, the ball just needs to pick up a pitch sooner. So really why the bowling balls are so diverse in their colors is to read the ball motion going down the lane.
You mean it's not just to look pretty?
Well, that too.
And a strike here for Morgan Starry. I don't know if she's entirely happy about it, but she will take the strike after she gets some help there from the pins, all falling down in favorable manner. Meanwhile, Jeremy Hodgson picks up a spare.
Yeah, you know, the goal as a bowler is to find the most room of error with the positive result. Not necessarily a strike, but the pocket hit. You want to leave a makeable spare. You want to catch the 3, 4, 5 bagger, but a ball that's going to give you both inside and outside.
Crowd goes totally silent as Morgan takes the approach and got a favorable reaction there. Looked like she was in trouble with the 10 pin, but it does fall down, so a makeable spare on the left side now for Morgan in the 4th. Jeremy Hodgson really liked that ball. He was ready to turn around and celebrate a strike, but a 7 pin remains for the left-hander. He'll have to try and knock that one down here in the 4th himself.
Yeah, Jeremy's doing everything he possibly can to get back into this match. Chad's got an early lead, so he's got to make a subtle adjustment to kick out the 7 or something to pick up that he's not going to leave the 3 pin.
Morgan going cross lane and converts the spare in the 4th. So Morgan Starry with a 48 in the 3rd, working on a spare in the 4th. Carlene Beyer with a 23 in the 2nd, working off of a strike in the 3rd. Jeremy Hodgson converts his spare on lane 13. So those marks will keep him in the match, and hoping that he can be on the fortuitous end of Chad cooling down here. But 3 in a row to start. It's something else here in a championship match. Carlene Beyer with a strike on 9.
Yeah, still a long ways to go. Only 4 frames in. We still got more than half the game to go. And when you get to this caliber of athletes, it's going to come down to the 10th frame.
It's amazing how it can feel so quick when you look back on the match, but in the moment, feels like every ball that you're approaching, it just takes forever to get up there. And every shot, you can pinpoint so many different moments
In many aspects, 10 frames seems like a lot, and other times it's not enough.
Yeah. And there's another strike for Carlene Byer on lane 10. That's 3 in a row. Carlene Byer of Manawa. Chad Dembski with a 3-pin here. He converts that spare. His first non-strike frame of the championship match. So that's now, for Chad Dembski, a 79 in the third, working on a spare in the fourth.
Yeah, a little overly aggressive, caught it inside, and the ball just picked up too soon going high.
Morgan Starry in the fifth goes Brooklyn and leaves a difficult split.
So right now we're seeing some physical difficulties. Her swing gets around her body a little bit, causes her to miss inside.
Chad Dembski of Marshall. A lot of pin action. He came up light on that one and gets 9.
Yeah, again, last frame he came up high, made a subtle adjustment at the bottom of the swing, came up light. 2-pin spare, easy conversion. Again, makeable spare.
Morgan takes the safe route to get 1 on this split. There's a makeable way to go about that split, but you also run the risk of not getting anything. So Morgan, the safe route there, gets 1. Chad Dembski converts a spare. That's now 2 spares in a row after starting with 3 consecutive strikes in the championship match. And here's an opening for Jeremy Hodson if he's able to string some strikes together here in the second half of this match.
Yeah, he needs to get himself back in this competition.
Morgan Starry over the second arrow on this one. Goes Brooklyn, converts a strike though, and she needed that.
Yes, she
a little bit
did.
of help.
Yes, she did. Again, her launch angles are very inconsistent. It could be nerves, it could be the pressure, it could be anything. But she's just not dialed into the lane right now. I think she's physically trying to make something happen. A little bit behind, but see if Carlene adds more added pressure.
Meanwhile, you saw on lane 14 on our screen that Jeremy Hodson leaves another 7-pin. Carlene Byer capitalizing on Morgan's struggles. That's 4 in a row for Carlene Byer. Jeremy Hodson converts his spare over on 14.
And again, going back to what you said, Carlene was in the previous match. She got to read the lane conditions. She found the zone that's going to be successful for her, and now she's just utilizing that to her advantage. Think of how many times a 5th place person has worked up a stepladder and won.
Carry that momentum throughout a match. Carlene Byer trying to make it 5 in a row, and she does. Nice ball. She's got a line figured out that Morgan just doesn't right now.
Exactly, just the experience from the last match.
Jeremy Hodson moves inside for this one, trying to mix it up to see if he can find a way to get a strike, and instead he goes crossover and leaves. He still gets a 9 count, but almost the same result.
Every time he's been on lane 14, he's come up light. So 13, he's making that compensation. That one was high. I think he can be using a little bit more of an aggressive bowling ball to read more of the lane.
Morgan Starry working on a strike, leaves a 3-10 split. Troublesome championship match for Morgan Starry. Jeremy Hodson converts another spare, but you can see the frustration in his facial expressions, just wondering, what do I got to do to get a strike here at Weston Lanes this morning?
He's still not down by much, so anything's still possible. He's keeping himself in the match, which he's supposed to do.
I mentioned earlier that spares don't win you a match, but they can lose you a match if you don't convert them.
Absolutely.
And speaking of converting a spare, Morgan Starry converts the 3-10 split.
Another spare I hate to shoot.
That's a tough one.
It is a tough one. Boy, Chad is locked in. He figured out lane 14. It's the only lane that's been giving him trouble most of the morning where he's come up high, but he made a subtle adjustment. It's been 9 or strike, pretty much.
Just looking here, every ball in the boys' match has been either a 9 spare or a strike. I should say every frame in the boys' match has been either a 9 spare or a strike. That's what you expect in a championship match. Meanwhile, Morgan Starry, after the split conversion for a spare in the 7th, comes back with a solid strike in the 8th.
Yeah, the most she can shoot is 205. She'd have to throw the next 4 to get that. And Carlene's on a 5-bagger. I think they say Yahtzee for 5 in a row.
And Chad Dembski leaves a 2-pin. Interesting leave for Chad in the 7th frame. Carlene Beyer, working on 5 in a row, leaves a 2-pin of her own.
Yep. That one again, just not clean off her hand. She missed at the bottom of the swing. You could see the ball just float to the right. She converts this 162. She's got a commanding lead over Morgan.
And she's unable to. Leaves an opening for Morgan Starry through 8 frames. Carlene Beyer with a 170. And you mentioned Morgan Starry can max out at a 205, but there is a chance.
Absolutely.
Tense moments in our championship match. Jeremy Hodson playing really far outside, gets another 9 count. He's just frustrated, looking to his coach for advice, can't figure out what to do. And Carlene Beyer, meanwhile, comes up very light.
You know what works successfully for you during the qualifying? You're bowling with other people on the pair. People are breaking the lane down differently. Now again, he's on a fresh pair. There hasn't been a lefty there. He only had about 6 shots to really break it in. He's at a slight disadvantage. So the ball that worked in qualifying may not be the ball that should work right now.
Carlene unable to convert her spare. That's back-to-back open frames, coming off of 5 strikes in a row. So as we head to the 10th frame in the girls' match, well, Morgan's still got a ball here in the 9th and a chance.
Yeah, anytime you miss a spare, you have to kind of step back. Walk out of your box and then step back in as if you're starting over. I'd love to see a little bit more time preparation from the young athletes and just recognize that mental part of the game.
Another 7-pin left for Jeremy Hodson, and Morgan Starry comes up light, and we just saw the same leave for Carlene Beyer, and Morgan Starry now going to try and convert it to stay alive in the championship match.
If she converts this, the most she can shoot is 185. Giving Carlene, she would just need 7 pins for the victory on the first ball. Jeremy staying clean, though. He's doing what he's supposed to.
You can see it in the corner of your screen on our stream on Bullstream TV. Now Morgan Starry needs this to stay alive in the tournament, and she comes up short. Morgan Starry of Green Bay Southwest is going to finish in 2nd place. She can max out for a 173. Carlene Beyer already with a 179 is going to be your girls singles state champion.
She really looked at what she did the last match and made her subtle adjustments. That 5-bagger got her locked in. Even with her open frame, she was still able to advance. What a great match. And
meanwhile, it's gotten a lot closer on the boys' side on 13 and 14. Chad Dembski leaves a 10-pin, and this is going to be huge for him. Now a 157, working with a 9 count, trying to get this spare in the 8th. Jeremy Hodson a 135, working on a spare in the 8th.
Morgan Light's laying 10. She struck here in the 10th, the 8th, the 6th, the 4th. She had an 8 spare, and the 2nd frame 9 missed. So she really got lined in on lane 10.
Able to get another strike here on lane 10, but now we switch over to the boys' match. Chad Dembski, huge spare on 14. And he's got it.
You could just see his mental focus on his face. He's looking down every time he walks back. His concentration is eternal. He's really focusing and knows how to handle that pressure.
Morgan Starry's final ball of the match is going to be a 7 count. It's going to give her a 170 in our championship match. Morgan Starry finishes in 2nd. And now it'll be a championship finale for Carlene Beyer on lane 9. Chad Dembski, meanwhile, on 13, gets them all. Huge strike for Chad Dembski in the 9th frame.
Well, if Jeremy's going to figure out that right lane, it's now.
Running out of time in the 9th frame.
Elvis Presley, it's now or never.
Jeremy lines up his shot, goes over the second arrow, and he's got it.
Yeah, you could see he definitely moved further left or outside. His angle to the pocket was not as steep. Ball picked up sooner. He finally figured it out. Good for him.
It is down to the wire in the boys' championship match.
He can shoot 215. If Chad goes 9 spare strike, he'll win by 2.
Up to Jeremy to put the pressure on Chad Dembski, and he's going to leave a split. And you know, that looked like a good ball, a devastating shot to start the 10th for Jeremy Hodgson.
Yeah, you know, the right lane, he kept coming up light. He made the adjustment, and the left lane hooked sooner for him. He made a great shot, but unfortunately, the 6-8 leave.
Jeremy converts
what a
the spare.
conversion.
Nicely done, Jeremy Hodgson. He has a smile about that one. He's going to finish with a clean game when it's all said and done.
And on this pattern, absolutely, how fabulous is that? That's all you can expect from yourself, is to make your spares, put the ball in the pocket. Chad just had been lined up all morning.
Jeremy can max out at 195 here with a strike. And
184.
of course, he leaves a 7-pin on his final ball. 194 for Jeremy Hodgson.
Chad needs 8 pins and 2 balls.
Don't foul, keep it on the lane, and Chad Dembski is going to be your boys' state champion. From Marshall High School. Again, Jeremy and Chad
Keep it on the
share.
lane. And
They
there it
share a
is.
center, and that's a championship. They will not share first place. Chad Dembski is your boys' singles state champion. I'm going to now turn it over back to Craig Elliott, who's been sitting here patiently waiting for a microphone to get back to him. Kelly, thanks for joining me for the singles match here as we got to the semifinals and the finals. It's a pleasure talking with you. And on behalf of Storm, it's a pleasure to have you here. And now I got to go announce some winners.
Absolutely, go. Thanks again for this opportunity. Congratulations to both the winners. And thanks again to Weston Lanes and Dale for this opportunity.
Thanks again, Kelly Kulik, our guest compliments of Storm. Here's Craig Elliott.
All right, thank you, Jesse and Kelly, and we'll take a short break here and we'll get the trophies out there with all our winners. Thanks for joining us. Hang on tight. We'll be right back.